All right, this is part two to the jail is hard, but staying free is harder. Testimony by me again. If you haven't watched my first video on it, I'm 39 years old. God willing, I'll be 40 in a couple of months. I was born in 1986. Never been to prison, thank God. Never been shot, but that's a different video. But yeah, never been to prison, and I just wanted to explain, further on in my situation. So, like I said, I got a job. I got off the block. If you watched the last video, I got off the block. My OG got me off the block and started working at a restaurant. I worked in the restaurant business for several years through my 20s. Kept me out of a lot of trouble. Um, Now, the thing is, you can get in trouble anywhere. You can get in trouble at work. You can get in trouble coming from, going to work, coming from work. You can get in trouble anywhere, depending on your mentality and how you react, how you respond to situations. And that's a big thing too on staying free. The difference between reacting and responding. When you react to a situation, you're letting your emotions control you because you're having a reaction. When you respond to a situation, you're letting your logic control you because now you're thinking of how you should respond. That's why when you're angry, sometimes being quiet, walking off, just going, just getting away from the situation is so important, especially if in a spousal situation. You know what I mean? The only ammunition a man has in his arsenal when it comes to domestic altercations is to leave. Leave. I don't care if it's your house, her house, whose house, somebody else's house. You leave. If you can't leave, don't get me wrong. I'm not, you know, it is what it is. But the only defense you got, if you can't leave, is to call the cops. And even then, you still gotta be, cool with that. Like you gotta let them know I called you. I'm here. I don't want to fight. I don't want to get in any physical altercations. I'm the one that called you now. Of course, if you got warrants or whatever, you don't want to do that. So your best bet is just to leave, get away. You know what I mean? I remember. Yeah, I can't believe I tell y'all this, but I remember one time, man. I was living on the second floor, and I was fighting with my ex, and I was trying to get out the house, and she was barricading herself in the door and wouldn't let me get out, and I snuck and jumped off. I went on the balcony. She came out on the balcony and she put out. Man, I jumped off the balcony, man. I mean, I ain't jump off, but I climbed down like just to get away, man. Yeah, I'm crazy, crazy, crazy. There's a reason why she's my ex. But anyway, God bless her. God bless her. She's a good person. But just that anything you got to do to remove yourself from a situation where you can get arrested. Um, you know, controlling yourself when you are around police. You know what I mean? I know that's hard. I know there's a lot of unfair situations, but you just gotta know how to chill, man. You gotta sometimes. Don't get me wrong. Now I've stood up to plenty of police and cursed them out and did all that dumb shit when I was young and all that. You know what I mean? But I had traffic infractions and stuff when I was doing that. But that shit can can escalate, man. But anything you do, you just gotta be chill, man. A true man's superpower is the power to endure. You're not a real man until you can endure pain. Until some of the worst things in your life happen to you, and instead of you reacting and going crazy, you respond and keep your head. Like they say, what's the old saying? Heavy the head that wears the crown. You know what I'm saying? So, keeping your peace, man. I had to learn to embrace peace. You know, when you grow up in chaos and, you know, and nut shit, you think it's normal. It's not normal. Chaos is not normal. You know, peace is normal. When you go outside, when you go into, you know, it's peaceful. When you go into a forest or, you know what I'm saying, or nature, you go to a lake or a beach or whatever, it's peaceful, man. God is peace. So the devil is chaos. So, you know, you got to keep your peace, man. Um, but yeah, I worked in the restaurant for several years, made a ton of money, made a ton of relationships, and you know, I started, you know, after the restaurant business, I started, you know, getting in my entrepreneurship. Always been an entrepreneur. Since I was a little kid, you know what I mean? I always had side hustles and sold this and that and that. So I started selling cars, and I got into that. Started selling cars. Then I really, it was funny. I was selling cars, but I didn't know anything about cars. You know what I mean? Really, like, you know how like people will be on this, you be on the street with your friends and a car drive past and be like, oh, that's a S600, or I ain't know the difference between a S600 and a CLA. I ain't know nothing, so I figured, all right, I'm gonna go to the dealership, learn my craft, and then I'll go back to selling cars on my own. But I went to the dealership, and I say all that because these are things that I never did. You know, I didn't have anybody to teach me. I didn't have any influence. I wasn't grandfathered in. This is just something I had inspiration. I felt motivated, and I started, you know, learning as much as I can. That's why YouTube is so important. You know, YouTube University is a real thing. I've made so much money and I've started so many different businesses from the skills that I've learned from YouTube. So, you know, there's outlets, man. There's outlets, especially in this day and age. Like, there's no excuse, man. You can make videos. You can, you know, invest in stock options, crypto. There's so many ways that you can stay out the way. You know what I mean? Now, even if you stay out the way and you getting money legally and you chilling and you're not doing nothing crazy, you still can put yourself in harm's way by the company you keep or the places you go. Remember, people, places, and things. Those are the things you have to be the most cautious about in life. People, places, and things. Now, I know it's popping. I know all the baddest shorties gonna be there. I know it's lit, da 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 da. But if it's a dangerous situation, you know, it ain't worth it to go. That's one thing about me, like, and I used to go out with the best of them. I've been to every borough in New York, every hood in Philadelphia, New Jersey, of course. I'm from Jersey, Maryland, all that by myself. I've traveled and, you know, and I'm by myself. You know what I mean? So I get it. You know what I mean? But it's how you move too. You know what I mean? It's how you move, man. Like, I move like a ninja, man. I always loved, you know, ninjutsu and, you know, the art of ninja, and I always, you know, prided myself on that kind of, you know, that kind of attribute in which I had a philosophy in. You know, I like the you know, I like to see and not be seen type. You know, and I'm 6'7". I stand out a lot, so that's even more reason for me to, like, you know, move a type of way. You know what I mean? And I'm cool with just regular shit. You know what I mean? When I go to the club, I'm not going to the club. Matter of fact, I'll tell you a story about, because I talked about my last video how, you know, to stay free, one of the skills you got to have is instincts. So I'm at a bar. I'm at my neighborhood bar with my friends. It's back in my drinking days in my 20s, right? So I'm out there with my coworkers, my boys. They my boys, though. So we at the bar, right? We all live in the same neighborhood. We was Irvington, New Jersey. We at the bar. So we at the bar, right, that we go to on 43rd Street off of Springfield Ave and shit. And this our spot. Like, me and the owner like this, like, I bring everybody there from my job. Like, this is my spot. This our spot. So we in there, though, in the hood there, you know what I mean? The projects, Crescent Lane, before Crescent Lane went down. If you know, you know. They was all in there. Cool. So, you know, they be in there. We be chilling. But I'm looking around, and, you know, I'm 6'7". I can see the whole bar. So I'm looking around, and it's like 10 dudes for every chick. Like, the ratio was crazy. It was like 7 to 10 dudes for every one girl. So I told my boys, I'm like, yo, it's too many guys here. Like, something gonna happen. Like, it's not enough women here to distract everybody. So we should go up the street to 40th Street Bar. This 40th Street Bar was still popping. So we walked up the street. We kept our cars parked at 43rd because it was right there. It was summertime. So we walked up the street, went to 40th. It was way more lit. Had a great time. They were closing. You know, the bars closed at the same time, around 2, 3 o'clock. So we walking back down the street. If you know, like, where 40th is, you got to walk back down to 43rd. So we walking down the street back to the 43rd where our cars was parked. And next thing you know, we get like halfway there, and we see some dude backing up like this in front of the door, front of the front door of the bar. He outside walking up like this. Next thing you know, you just see another dude right in front of him with the gun out. Boom, 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 shooting the dude. So dude shoot, he back up in the Springfield Ave. Luckily a bus was coming, whatever it was, the 25, whatever, you know the buses that be coming. So the bus coming, he like ran behind the bus. Like, he got behind the bus, so the bus was in between him and the shooter. So the shooter stopped. Next thing you know, you see another dude walk up to the shooter, give him a hand clap, like, good job, and then they go on their way. The shit was funny because my mans was in front of my man. One of my mans was in front of me and my other mans. Now, me and my other mans, we Aries, you know, we a little loose. So he walking down the street, he hit a gunshot. My man, he real cool. He real calm, cool, collected. So he did this, like, it was so funny. Like, let me show you. He did this military turn. Like, he was walking, he heard the gunshot, he was like, and just turned like this and kept walking down the corner. So I'm laughing, me and my other mans. Our dumbasses, we all nosy and shit. We going towards the shooting and shit. We all in the street looking for dude and all that. Like, oh shit. We all nosy and shit. But it goes back to the point of my instincts, because when I first told my boys, let's go up, they like, what you talking about? Like, yo, it's too many guys here, man. It's gonna be something's gonna happen. I feel it. So we went. So when we got back down, I told y'all something was gonna happen, man. It wasn't, you know what I mean? So just things like that, trusting your instincts. You have to trust your. How many times you've gotten into a situation or gotten out of a situation because you didn't trust your instincts, or you did, you know? We all have guardian angels, and they'll give you a nudge, but you gotta listen to it. You know what I'm saying? So that's just one instance of, you know, using your instincts to, you know, keep yourself out of trouble. But yeah, man, you know, if you're not going to have a job, which is fine, then you need to create a legal business. And if you're in an illegal business, you need to swallow your pride, get the fuck out of it, and start something legal. Cut everybody off if you have to. That's another thing too. Like I said, it goes back to people, places, and things. Now that was the situation that happened at the bar was about people and places, but it's more about places. This is about people. You know, I don't care if they family, friends, your spouse. If they're not good for your development in a positive way, if they're not getting you closer to God, then you need to leave them alone, man. Because as a man, your true mission and purpose is to get yourself and your family closer to God. So for any woman watching this or whatever, if you got a man and he's not getting you closer to God, then you ain't with the right man. Because any man, and if you do have a man trying to get you closer to God, you better adhere to that man. And if you don't, you're going to lose him. You know, and if you are a man with a spouse or family, it's your obligation to get your family closer to God. And I don't care if you gotta look like the bad guy. I tell my children all the time, if I gotta be the bad guy for everybody else to be good, so be it. You know what I'm saying? Because that's the definition of a leader. A real leader doesn't say you go. A real leader says let's go. I don't tell anybody to do anything that I don't do, because how could I tell you to do something that I don't do? How can I tell you to pray if I don't pray? How can I tell you to have faith if I don't have faith? You know what I mean? And I've gotten in trouble. Don't think me like I got this paperwork on me. I've gotten in trouble. You know what I mean? But that's through the grace of God that I got out of it. You know, that's God's grace and mercy, because he knew I wasn't evil. I talked about my last video. You know what I mean? You shouldn't be bad at all. But I'd rather be bad than evil. Evil's a whole nother dimension of hell. So, you know, getting back to what, you know, I remember when I was at the restaurant, I had a brother. I tell a story a lot because it's so amazing. He was a blood, and he came to work at the restaurant, and he ended up training under me. And I told him, I was like, "Hey man, I get it. I know where you from. I know." And he got a job because he was out there gang banging, and he got locked up. And he was like, "Yo, there was no way I was supposed to get out of jail." And he said he just started praying to God, and he prayed to God, and he got out of it. So when he got out of it, he went to his mom because his mom was, a faithful woman. And he was like, "I'm done. Like, just whatever I got to do." So he started working with me. And I started training him, and I told him, "Hey man, you're gonna get what you give." And years later, now he's a manager of that restaurant. He's been doing very well for himself. Like I said, I told you I worked at a dealership. Ended up selling him a beautiful red BMW GT. You know what I mean? So it's just God's grace and mercy when you living righteously. Now nobody's perfect, man. I've made too many mistakes, too many. But I'm still here talking to you right now because of God's grace and mercy, first of all, and because of me not crossing a line, not wanting to cross a line. I don't want to be evil. I ain't never, when I watch movies, I root for the bad guy. You know what I mean? I know everybody wants to be the Joker, but fuck that. Batman, fuck him up. You know what I mean? I'm Team Batman. So, because angels go harder than demons. You ain't never heard of a demon beating an angel. But everybody want to be on demon time. But the real tough ones are the angels. There's no better feeling than helping other people. See, I was a big example for people my age and my age group because I was living so maturely at such a young age. I already had a girl and family and kids and place and car and, I was moving. You know what I mean? But I was doing it the right way. I remember when I moved and I started working at another restaurant. And when I walked in there, I seen a whole bunch of, young black men washing dishes. So, I was way more arrogant back then and obnoxious. So I looked at them and I was like, "What the hell are y'all back there doing?" And they looking at me like, "Who the hell are you?" I'm like, "What the fuck are y'all washing dishes for? Why y'all ain't out here serving or doing whatever out here with me, getting this money?" And at first they took it like, "Yo, who the fuck are you talking to?" And then once they seen I was genuine about it, like, "Nah, y'all better than this, bro. Don't have them niggas here just have you back here washing dishes, nah, niggas." So they ended up, one became server, the other one came cook, and the other one, did a hybrid of cooking and serving. You know what I mean? But they got out of there. So, like I said, at first I was looking like the bad guy, but in the end, like they say, die the hero or live long enough to see yourself become the villain. But in the long run, what I've learned in my life is that, if you're faithful and patient, God will bless you. See, don't get me wrong, we all want to keep up with the Joneses and be fly and have the dopest. I get all that. I love being fly just with the best of them, but that don't have nothing to do with who you are inside. Cause I've been around poor niggas and they've hated on me, and I've been around very rich men and they've hated on me. So it don't matter what you got if you still a punk inside. You know what I mean? Or you still weak inside. So, that's getting back to my original point about when you get it and when you're doing good, how you even got to be more careful. You have to be more careful when you getting money, especially if you getting money the right way. Because one bar fight or one altercation with your lady or one situation with, you know what I mean? You doing too much and whatever, man. It's so many different ways to get yourself in trouble and or in jail that you have to be very cautious, and you got to be very grateful too, because God protects us from things that we can't see. See, there's a lot of situations that I probably should have gotten into, but I didn't because of my faith. God was like, "Nah, chill. You know what I mean? He's mine." And I would listen. If I get an instinct or if I get a message, because there's signs everywhere. You got to read the signs, man. I tell my children, this world is way more mythical than you think. So you have to have a faith in a higher power greater than yourself. How can you be so arrogant to think that God created all of this, including you, but he doesn't exist? So if you know God exists, then put your faith in him. Because at the end of the day, we got a lot of examples that the devil exists. So if the devil exists, that means God exists too. So be grateful that you're free. Be grateful that you're not in trouble. Get away from guys. I don't care if they're your best friend, your brother, whatever. Get away from them if they're not moving in the right direction. We have to stop being stupid. The devil is banking on our stupidity. Stop being stupid. We are not, our grandfathers, our fathers, our grandfathers weren't stupid. They were poets and writers, and they helped create this world and this country. We gotta wake up and understand that we are better than the monotony, the bull crap. I love you all, man. Stay safe, stay free, stay out the way, and stay faithful with God. One.